Let me tell you something about human nature. People don't always miss you while you're giving. They miss you when you're gone. They don't feel your value when you're present and constant. They feel it when your silence replaces your support, when your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. That's when the phone lights up. That's when he circles back. But don't be fooled. Every return isn't about love. Sometimes it's about realization. When you pull back and go silent, when you stop texting, calling, checking up, or making yourself available, something powerful happens. A shift takes place. See, a man doesn't truly begin to understand what you brought to the table when you're constantly sitting at it. He realizes your worth when the seat you used to fill is empty, when your voice that once soothed now disappears, when your presence, the one he grew used to, is no longer there to greet him at the end of a long day. That's when he starts to feel it. That's when absence starts doing what your presence never could. It makes him pay attention. The truth is, when you're always there, always available, always emotionally present, it creates a sense of comfort. He doesn't have to chase. He doesn't have to question where he stands. But the moment you take that access away, respectfully and without drama, it throws him off. It makes him uncomfortable. And in that discomfort, reflection begins. Let's be real, men aren't always the fastest to process emotions. Sometimes they don't even know how they feel until they don't have the thing anymore. It's only when the calls stop, the texts don't come, the energy fades, that they're left alone with their thoughts. That's when the silence becomes deafening. And not because he needs your validation, but because he was relying on your presence far more than he admitted. Absence is powerful. It creates space. And in that space, a man starts to look at the situation differently. He begins to replay the moments, the laughs, the support, the little things you did that he overlooked while he had you. He starts asking himself, was she really that solid? Did I push away something rare? And now, because you're not interrupting the process with a message, a reminder, or an explanation, he has no choice but to sit in that uncertainty. That's when curiosity kicks in. That's when regret starts knocking. Not because you posted something sexy on social media, not because you made him jealous with another guy, but because your peace is louder than your pain. You didn't chase, you didn't beg, you didn't explain your worth one more time, you just left. And it's that emotional discipline that gets a man's attention more than any argument ever could. You want to know why he's coming back? Because your absence forced him to feel what your presence never could. He is loss, real undeniable loss. And sometimes the heart doesn't recognize what it had until the mind is left in silence. That's why men return. Not always because they've changed, but because now they know what it feels like to be without something they thought they'd never lose. So don't underestimate the power of falling back. You don't have to block him, bash him, or broadcast your healing. Just move quietly, focus inward, and allow space to do what words never could. Because if he's meant to come back, he will. And if he's coming back just because he finally felt your absence, then you decide if he still deserves your presence. Habits are powerful. Whether we realize it or not, people become a part of our routine, part of our emotional rhythm, our mental atmosphere, even our physical habits. Now, when a man spends time with you, talks to you every day, shares little jokes, updates you about his world, or simply knows you're always there when he needs to vent, he starts forming a bond. Not always consciously, but consistently. And when that bond is suddenly broken, when the messages stop, the calls go unanswered, and your presence starts to fade, he doesn't just feel your absence emotionally. He feels it practically. That void shows up in his day-to-day life. He wakes up and notices your good morning text isn't there. Something great happens, and he instinctively wants to share it. But you're not on the other end of the phone. He's having a rough day and thinks about that common energy you always brought, but now it's missing. At first, he might brush it off. Say it's nothing. Maybe he tells himself you'll reach out again. But as days turn into weeks, your absence becomes undeniable. It's not just the silence. It's the disruption of the routine. You were a consistent piece of his world, and now that pattern is broken. That's when the realization starts to creep in. Because we don't usually miss people just for what they did. We miss how they made us feel. And when someone becomes part of your regular life, they become a source of emotional regulation. You may have been the one who kept him grounded, reminded him of his worth, gave him encouragement, or made him feel seen. And without you, he starts noticing the emotional imbalance. He may not know how to say it, but he feels it. That quiet space where you used to be, it's heavy now. It's important to understand this. You don't need to do anything flashy to be missed. You don't need to post subliminal messages online, try to make him jealous, or let him know what he lost through other people. All you need to do is break the pattern. Remove yourself from the routine and let time do what your words couldn't. Because once a man feels that shift in his rhythm, when your voice is no longer part of his background noise, his heart starts to whisper what his ego kept denying. I miss her. See, your presence wasn't noise. It was music. It added something valuable to his daily life. But like most people, he didn't appreciate the song until it stopped playing. Now the silence reminds him of what he used to have and what he no longer does. So if he returns, it's because he's starting to realize that you weren't just someone he talked to. You were a rhythm, a comfort, a calm, something reliable in a chaotic world. And now that you've gone silent, the noise of life feels louder. And the space you left behind, it's echoing your worth. That's what makes a man look back, not the drama, not the chase, but the undeniable fact that life just doesn't feel the same without the routine he once took for granted. There's a moment that comes after silence, after the distance has been felt and your absence has taken root. And that moment hits a man's ego like a lightning bolt. See, some men don't come back because they've grown. They don't return because they've had some great emotional awakening or developed the maturity you hoped for. No, some men return simply because their ego can't handle being forgotten. They thought you would chase. They assumed you would fold. They believed deep down that you couldn't live without them. And when you prove them wrong with silence, peace, and elevation, it doesn't just bruise their pride, it shatters it. For some men, it's not love that brings them back. It's disbelief. Disbelief that you really let go, that you really stopped checking, that you really truly walked away without looking back. It disrupts their identity because the same man who once thought he had a permanent place in your heart is now faced with the reality that you're no longer orbiting around him. And that's a hard pill to swallow for someone who built his confidence on being needed. Ego is loud. It wants attention. It wants control. It thrives on the idea that it still matters to someone even after damage has been done. That's why when you go no contact, when you choose peace over drama and healing over begging, it sends a message louder than any angry text or emotional breakdown ever could. Your silence says, I don't need you to validate me anymore. And that silence, it's deafening to a man whose ego was used to being fed. This is why you have to be careful when a man returns after no contact. You've got to ask yourself, is he coming back out of clarity or out of pride? Is it genuine regret or just a bruised ego needing repair? Because a man with a wounded ego isn't always seeking reconciliation. Sometimes he's just seeking reassurance. He's not trying to build something new. He's just trying to confirm that he still has a hold on you. That's where your power lies, in the ability to discern the difference. A return without responsibility is just a repeat. And you didn't go silent, you didn't walk away, and you didn't grow just to end up back in the same cycle with someone who still doesn't understand your value. Let me be clear, your absence didn't make him fall in love. It made him uncomfortable. There's a difference. And while discomfort can lead to growth, it doesn't always guarantee it. So when he reaches out, when he suddenly remembers you exist, don't let your heart answer the door without checking with your mind. Because the ego is clever. It knows how to say the right things, but time will always reveal the motive. If he's back for ego, his actions will still be selfish. If he's back for love, his actions will be different, consistent, humble, and intentional. You're not here to soothe someone's pride. You're not a rebound for a bruised ego. You're a whole woman who learned to stand alone. So if he returns, let him earn access, not assume it. Let him prove he's not coming back just because it hurts to see you heal, but because he's finally ready to respect the woman who no longer needs him to. Growth is one of the most confusing and intimidating things a man can witness after he's lost a woman. It shakes his core, because when he walks away or pushes you away, he expects you to fall apart. He expects tears, confusion, emotional chaos. He pictures you stuck, questioning yourself, waiting by the phone, hoping for a message. But when time passes and he sees you growing, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, maybe even physically, it does something to his mind. It challenges everything his ego told him would happen. See, growth is loud without making a sound. When a man sees you healing, elevating, smiling in peace, becoming more centered, more joyful, more self-aware, it catches him off guard. He expected you to break, but instead you blossomed. You stopped pouring into him and started pouring into yourself. You stopped looking backward and started building forward. That's unsettling for someone who thought your identity was wrapped up in him. Growth sends a very specific message. I realized I didn't lose you, you lost me. And that message gets louder every day he sees you rising. Maybe you started a new project, hit the gym, reconnected with your purpose, surrounded yourself with people who speak life into you. You're not posting subliminal quotes or pretending to be happy. You are happy, or at least working toward it. And that energy, that quiet, powerful shift in who you're becoming, that's what draws his attention again. He starts asking questions. Is she always this strong? Did I underestimate her? How did she move on without me? And those questions lead to reflection. Because he now realizes something he didn't before. You were growing even while you were with him. He just didn't notice it. Or worse, he tried to suppress it. He may have gotten comfortable with a version of you that needed him, that leaned on him, that placed her worth in his hands. But now, your worth stands on its own. It doesn't ask for approval. It doesn't need confirmation. It simply is. That's intimidating to a man who isn't growing himself. He may come back, not because he's ready, but because he feels left behind. And sometimes that return isn't about reconnection, it's about relevance. He wants to know he still matters, that he can still get your attention, that your growth hasn't put him out of reach. And that's where you have to be careful. Because growth attracts curiosity, but curiosity isn't always commitment. Sometimes it's just ego in disguise. Your elevation is sacred. You earned it, you cried for it, you broke for it, you fought for it. So don't let someone re-enter your life just because they finally see the light you had all along. Let them match it. Let them respect it. Let them arise to it. Because if he's really grown too, he'll show up differently. He'll speak with accountability. He won't try to drag you back into the old story. He'll want to build something new from a place of mutual strength, not familiar weakness. You became the version of yourself that he never expected to see, and now he wants to return. Not because you stayed the same, but because you didn't. And whether or not you take him back, let that be your victory. You didn't let the loss stop your growth. You let it fuel it. And that's the version of you no man forgets. Value is one of those things that's often only truly recognized in hindsight. See, when a man has consistent access to your love, your time, your support, and your presence, it's easy for him to start taking it for granted. It becomes normal. It becomes expected. But the moment it's gone, the moment he can no longer reach out and get the same emotional response, the same warmth, the same connection, that's when the truth starts sinking in. That's when he begins to realize just how valuable what he had truly was. Let's be real. When you're loving a man with all you've got, you're showing up emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and maybe even financially. You're encouraging him, believing in him, praying for him, being his peace in a world that constantly brings war. But here's the hard part. When you're consistent, when you're loyal, when you're always available, sometimes that very goodness starts to blend into the background. He stops seeing it for the blessing it is. He starts thinking it'll always be there no matter how he treats you. But value becomes most visible in absence. When you pull your energy back, when you stop overextending, stop chasing, stop trying to convince someone of what you bring to the table, a different kind of silence shows up, not the silence of distance, but the silence of self-worth. And that's when he starts doing the math. He starts thinking back on the countless ways you were there, The little things you said, the way you listened when nobody else did, the way you supported him when he didn't even believe in himself. And now, without you, it all starts to feel different, a little emptier, a little colder, a little more confusing. Suddenly, the things he thought were small become significant. He remembers how you'd send encouraging messages when he was down. He recalls how you reminded him of his purpose when he was about to give up. He feels the weight of what it means to have someone truly see him and what it now feels like to be unseen by you. That kind of realization doesn't come quickly, it creeps in, it builds. And then one day it hits like a wall. I had something rare and I didn't even know it. But here's what's powerful. Your value didn't change, his awareness did. You were always worthy, always enough. He just didn't recognize it when he had front row access. And that's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of his capacity to receive and appreciate it. See, not everyone is equipped to hold what you bring. Not every man has the emotional maturity to value a woman who's both strong and soft, independent, nurturing, present, and wise. So when he comes back, and many do, it's not always about you. Sometimes it's about what he finally sees in himself, the gap your absence created, the quiet where your love used to live, the missing piece that can't be filled with distractions, rebounds, or ego. He comes back because he finally realizes that what you gave wasn't ordinary. It was exceptional. But here's the lesson: just because he sees your value now doesn't mean you owe him access to it again. Let your worth be a lesson, not a revolving door. You were the gift all along. He just had to lose it to know it. And whether or not you take him back, always remember this: you never needed him to validate your value. You only needed time and distance to make it undeniable.